This is Open the Door, a podcast by Habitat for Humanity International. Life starts at home, where families grow and futures are built. Yet today, people around the world live without adequate shelter. In this series, we hear from voices across Asia and the Pacific working to change that. Because housing isn't just a roof, walls, and a door. It's health, education, safety, economic opportunity, and dignity. So open the door and let's settle into a conversation to see how together we can build a world where everyone has a place to call home. Hello and welcome to this episode of Open the Door, a podcast by Habitat for Humanity about housing. Today we're unpacking the interconnectedness of policies and partnership that create the enabling environment for adequate housing. I'm Eliza Sthapit, National Director, Habitat for Humanity Nepal, and I will be moderating our conversation today. I come from a small country, a population of 30 million. I come from a country that is devastated by climate change and disaster. We talk about a constitution that fundamentally speaks about home as a fundamental right and is recognized by the government of Nepal. And yet, 1 in 2 Nepalese wake up every day with a worry that they do not have a safe shelter. They do not have a place they can call home. Habitat Nepal has served over 200,000 families in the last 3 decades. And yet, we have recognized that no matter how much more we build, no matter how hard we work, we will not be able to solve this problem ourselves. It is not just enough to build, one home, two home, 100 home, 300 homes every year. The system is broken. The problem is grave. This is why we have collectively understood as an institution that it's so important to continue to work as partners, as development community, as private sector, as a community working on the ground, as academia, as multilaterals, bilaterals, as donor. We need to work collectively to solve the issues of housing. More importantly, we cannot work in silos. We need to be in a space where we continuously, collectively address the systemic barriers in housing so that we can together solve this. Today, we will hear from our colleague in Cambodia who will share how they're building relationships, turning trust into policy, and unlocking 100 million US dollar for public housing. We will also hear from our Indonesian counterpart and a story about a fishing village facing the twin pressures of seasonal funding and a rapidly urbanizing city, and a successful village fund policy that is now scaling across the country. So let's talk about policy and partnerships right now. Hello and welcome, Handoko, National Director, Habitat for Humanity Indonesia, Vandy, National Director, Habitat for Humanity Cambodia. Welcome to the studio and to this podcast
Thank
episode.
you.
Very glad that you're here for this very important conversation. We all belong to a region, Asia Pacific.
Yeah.
It is one of the most disaster prone and most affected, by climate and one of the fastest urbanizing region in the world. The data is dire, right? 7 out of top 20 nations most vulnerable to climate change and 22 of the most disaster prone countries are sitting in this region. So, this conversation is not just important, it is timely. It is time for us to act and do things that really matter. One organization alone cannot move the needle. And we as Habitat, we are committed to investing in policy, partnership, and do much beyond what we are doing, not just building, but do much more as partners. That is why we're dedicating the whole episode to just talk about policy and partnerships. Vandy, you've spent more than 25 years in development and humanitarian and private sector work. And housing has been your through line. But this is also very personal for you, right?
Yeah.
Can you share your journey with us and what brings you to this field?
Thank you so much, Elisa. So, similar you, I come from a small country that have 70 million population, and the recent development have creates a lot of inequity for housing. So, as a personal, I grown up during the wartime, where I see a lot of housing needs across my childhoods, and that connects so much to my passion for the work around housing system. So Cambodia have grow rapidly with urbanization that provide great opportunity to many people, but also create inequity left behind a lot of people that not having a decent housing. And as you have been highlight, Cambodia also is very vulnerable to the disaster. So working around resilient housing is always a big passion for me and my team in Cambodia.
That's so inspiring to hear, Vandy. And the fact that it actually drives you because you have been through it yourself gives it a lot more meaning. Handoko, you lead Habitat in Indonesia, and it has one of the most complex housing systems in the region. How did you end up in this work? And what kind of work has Habitat Indonesia been doing under your leadership?
Thank you, Eliza. First of all, greetings from Indonesia. So, a professor is asking me a question before. What have you done for the poor? In Habitat, we are talking about housing poverty, elevation of housing poverty. Because of that, the question, do they dare to dream? That is really close in my heart. So Indonesia, Habitat Indonesia focus on the first one is this, the lowest percentile of the income groups, which is the 10 and the 9. And then we focus also the woman as the head of the family. And the third one is that basically is that the family members, which is disabled. So they are the one that is deprived, which is that having difficulty to access affordable housing. So Habitat focus starting from the beginning, almost 20 years, which is that building new houses, renovation and repair, and also water sanitations. But we see the huge needs, housing poverty in Indonesia. So now we are moving more affordable housing, and we focus now piloting quite a number on the climate resilient and hazard resilient, as you said, that Indonesia is one of the hazard disaster risk area. Uh, but moving for scaling up to address the issues, how really that we find the niche within the ecosystem, housing poverty ecosystem, and also the gaps. So we are also now expanding towards the housing policies and then also housing financing, so that we hope that through that process and intervention, we can work with local government, national government, and also with larger stakeholders to voice the poor family, the low incomes for housing, and also especially back to my first statement, to dare to dream.
Dare to dream. And I completely agree with you, Handoko, on this because I was reflecting also on the time I joined Habitat and one of the first field visits that nothing moves you when you are in the community and you see that community doesn't have the same privileges as you would when you finish the office at 5 and when you go back to the home. So, colleagues, let's just discuss a little bit about policy and partnership, right? What we're talking about today is the slow, evidence based work of getting housing into government policy and government budgets. So, Handoko, if I may ask you, can you start us off by helping us understand what does this actually mean inside Habitat Indonesia's work?
Indonesia, we are fortunate with the current government. They are focusing on the 3 million houses campaign for 1 year in the process to alleviate the housing poverty. So let me start with partnership. I think the most important part is the voice from the bottom. What is really needed by the local community? Affordability, land tenure, uh, access to the subsidies, and a lot of other things. So within the housing ecosystem. So and then through the partnership, for Indonesia case, we work a lot with a CSR, with corporate, and we are grateful that they are really committed to this. And also we work with universities, thought leaderships, schools even, with the youth, and also faith-based organizations. But the question when we build one by one, that the demand is so huge, the need, the cry is so huge, what should we do? I think this is the coming of the policy. When I see the gap within the ecosystem, and then really see that where the policy that really fill in the gaps, for example, land tenure, we will discuss it later, and also the subsidy of the government. For example, the low incomes the one that target group for Indonesia habitat is not bankable. They never step their foot in the bank, you see, and they don't have savings because the money is day in day out, you see. So, but the government require for the subsidy through the banking system. So how really that this target group can be enabled to access the subsidies while they are not bankable. There's a concrete example, and policy umbrella will be one of the things that will fill in the gaps, including the land tenures. Government has a wonderful, initiative for certification of the lands, but some of the poor they don't have a ID card. They are born without birth certificate. How they can access that for generations? And the risk that is being co-opted, taken over by developers, big investors, and so forth. So that's how I see that partnership and policies can fill in all the gaps and working together for sustainable impact.
What you say here, Handoko, is so critical because, we often say housing system is broken, right? I mean, the intent is amazing. We have provisions and we have, government recognition to housing being fundamental. They have investment. They want to do it. They have a great vision and mission, I think, also in the region, in many countries we work in. You can't just do it one way, right? You have to do multiple ways. You have to look at right and left, top and bottom. You have to see everywhere. Vandy, one word comes again and again when you're talking about your work in Cambodia, the partnership with government, with other NGOs, with communities themselves. Could you walk us through what that actually looks like on the ground when you're actually doing housing programs and why partnership and trust has been your foundation for what we've been able to achieve in housing?
So, similar to your country, we are lucky that our government realize the importance to address housing needs through the housing ecosystem. So, from Habitat, we and the government realize the need of housing. Cambodia need around 1 million housing, new house by 2030. So we all agree to work together in partnership across the housing ecosystem. Habitat in Cambodia have important role to contribute. So working together with the government through a trustful partnership engagement is very important. It's a fundamental of our share success together to address housing in the country. So Habitat in Cambodia had contributed to number of research that really analyze the evidence around the needs and also continue to deep dive into the possible solution. So the government and Habitat and private sector and NGO community have come together, reflect and realize the need to have a better policy. So, for example, we had been working and successfully achieved the adaptation of the social affordable housing policy, learning from the first policy, which is not so effective. So we come up together to make a more effective, more practical policy that can support private sector, NGO, to work together to address housing solution in a more effective way for the low income and the people family living in the informal settlement.
Yeah. No, thank you, Vandy, because when you speak about evidence, that is the key, right? To both of you, and I'd like to know your thoughts on what's one thing about policy or partnership in housing that the people would be surprised to learn. Maybe, Handoko, you start?
About partnership, it's really key that government as the regulator and also have the budget and also the policy maker, the decision maker. It's very key to understand what is really that we as Habitat for Humanity, big family, and especially in Indonesia, to fill in the gap and also bridging the bottom up, the voice of the local community, and also what is really the policy that can provide sustainable impact. There's one regency chief. He came to the office and then we discussed about it. And I was saying that we focus on the um, uh, people with disability. And said, oh, we are doing that. So there's a bridge there, you see. There's a commonality. But the second time, I said also we also means focus the target group on the woman as the head of a family, and he was starting saying that, oh, it's not in my mind, so let's do it together. So we have to find something that there's a commonality that we can commit together. On the policy part, which is that I always believe that habitat, we really focus on the housing. You see, that is our strength. But how to go beyond that, you see, how to scale it up. So the policy, one thing that I learned that policy can be a seed investment we have done, and then it's become a showcase for people to see, especially the decision maker at the policy level, and they say, I like it. And how we multiply it, how we make it a sustainable impact. So one example, when they said, okay, Habitat Indonesia, we focus on the housing, the new house. But how about the land tenure? So we work with microfinance, with a cooperative, Grameen Bank. And then that's that. How about the infrastructure? So government, can you do something about it? We do community preparations, but you will focus on that, on the land tenure, the permit, and also the layout, and I mean, it's a lot of things, sewerage, clean water, electricity. So at the end, the seed fund of the housing, starting from housing, it become a resettlement that we will discuss later on. But what I would like to say that is very key. What is the return of investment to the policy, the seed fund that we can provide and become a sustainable impact and multiplyable towards other regions within national office or beyond?
No, that's very interesting, Handoko. And the fact that you have to be a convener and facilitator, right?
Yes,
And you have to grow
that's the right word.
complementarity and the mutual
That's
interest
right.
on what is available as a resource and where do you put it where it is needed and where it can scale and impact. Sandy, what do you think?
Yeah, I think housing is a foundation of survival and development for every family. So having housing include into the policy is a very big investment towards the better health, better learning opportunity for the new generation. So in Cambodia, we have been noticed that the investment in housing is a highest return investment ever, because this is also not just to the individual family, but it also contribute to community and sustainability as a whole. It's about something to promote inclusive uh, community and society development that benefit the economic of the country.
When you talk about housing, and like you said, Handoko, when you talk about joint land titles, for instance, land tenure certificates, they actually build their asset one by one, not just for themselves, but for their generations. When I'm in the community and I talk to our homeowners and I ask them, why does it matter? There's a woman who said, now I have a home, I can focus on my children, their education, I can, send them to a better school, and a worry of my life is put to a complete stop because I have a home. So, yeah, sometimes we also feel housing policy and partnerships invisible to the donors, right? Because the win is slow and gradual and takes time. But without it, even if you're building many, many homes, you're still within the broken system. So the question is really, how do you bridge it? How do you tap the most out of it? Vandy, take us inside one piece of this work. The Cambodia social and affordable housing policy didn't change overnight. Took a lot of hard work from you and the team and your partners around it. Walk us through this journey and how did the trust get built?
Yeah, as you said, it take a long time to build evidence. As we discussed about the importance of evidence-based programming, Habitat in Cambodia have operated more than 20 years. We have been working around social housing over the past year, and there are evidence of important to work around social housing. So Habitat in Cambodia able to demonstrate the evidence of our project on the ground. We able to show to the government the importance of having a social housing modality to scale up in the country. So the government realized the importance of best practice, and that include into the policy, which social housing is not was not in the policy before. Because of this good work that our team in Habitat Cambodia and our partner at the subnational government have been doing, that really inspire the national government to adapt into social and affordable housing policy. And with that policy adopted by our prime minister, the Ministry of Economy and Finance and the Ministry of Land Management, Urban Planning and Construction, with Habitat and other partner, we initiate to pilot project of social housing in two provinces, as you said, in Siem Reap and Bat Nambong, that aim to mobilize the public, private, and using the people-centered partnership approach to co-create, to design the project that really make it meaningful for the home partner that will be benefit from the social housing that we will be deliver in the future.
Yeah, that's so inspiring, Vandy, because one of the things we're also always talking about is building only so many homes is not enough, right? So the fact that you can get into the social housing, system, you can support government to recognize their ambitions for the country, but through your partnership and you bringing in, other important resources around it is so critical. Handoko, I want you to take us to a specific place, Tanjung Kait,
Tanjung Kait.
the fishing village, as it is called. A Buddhist Confucian temple as the landlord, generation of families who had never owned the land they lived on. Tell us how 110 families ended up with land titles and decent homes, and what that journey taught you about how change really happens.
Yeah. So Tanjung Kait, let me bring you to there. 3 years back, it's a slum area in the coastal. So the majority of the community, they are poor fishermen, but in fact they are living in unauthorized land. So they don't have the rights for the lands, but it's owned by the temple. So basically, here the owner of the temple said, "Can we do something about it? They would like to sell the land at a cheaper price, but the 110 families over there that work from the first generations with the temple, and then they do other works, but they're still there, but they do not have money to buy the land. So that is the starting point about the land tenure. So we call it the 8 steps to listen, really what is really the needs, and also the desire, and also what is the expectation for the 110 families. And land is very key. Like I said, it's the asset. So when we discussed of that, we found this with TCIS, Comida is a cooperative using Grameen banks to make saving groups, which is that for the land purchase, you see. And then we work with the government to give subsidies for the land ownership certificate and so forth. And then the next thing is that because some of the land is already big, some is small size. Oh, it's a big headaches over there because everybody wanted to have their land, you see. So this is where that really that we as Habitat is coming in to do our community preparation, and then how to facilitate them, and also with the local government. So after that, we are able to make the layout and everything is fair. So this is where we are coming in, when we are coming from the bottom, working with the grassroots and bringing the voice to the decision maker, that is the local government. There is one thing that we learn is about the dignity, because a lot of people are saying that the poor cannot, I mean, they do not have anything, they cannot contributive for their own life improvement. But we always believe that everybody have the dignity and also the rights and also the ability to provide something. And this is the proof that 110 houses completed in a very formal settlement with a complete infrastructure, and then they are paying the monies to the saving groups. And also now, the local government and also with us, we are, I mean, bridging with the one of the major university to upscale this fish village become a ecotourism fish village. So now the government provide all kind of things there for the health center and also for schooling, for the toddlers. But the best thing that I think we learned that it inspire that we can do it together. And second, there's a lot of local government, city mayors, the regency leaders come to us and said, let's do it together for the slum area, for the resettlement, and also informal settlement revitalization. I think that's the joy. But the last thing, Eliza and Fandi, when I visit them for the inauguration of the Hanover, I asked how many generations you do not have the house. They said 3 generations. That is the dream come true.
The dream come true. Definitely, Handoko. With home, you unlock all these opportunities, like, Handoko mentioned, ecotourism, you have infrastructures coming in. You basically complete the full circle, right? So it's so, so powerful. When you say, Handoko, we're on it together, this is the together work that we actually do through policy and partnership. And it's so, so powerful on that. We have heard two very specific stories, but the structural picture across Asia Pacific is much, much bigger. What are the structural challenges that keeps this work hard, and what's unique about doing it here in our region? What do you think, Bandy?
I think our region in Asia Pacific, we have a rich experience and strength that able to leverage and build stronger and better together on housing solution. In Habitat, we have our office across the region that have a great modality, very unique, that can be scalable because those modality is sustainable, contribute to a great impact. The impact beyond just housings alone, it's beyond the wall or roof, but it is a wellness of the people that live in the family and also benefit to their children, which is the future generation of the region. We are the region with long experience, with a lot of best practice that can share across the region. So uh, working around housing system solution is something really inspire me because we have a lot of actor within the ecosystem. That government is a key, as you have highlighted. We have private sector is important, that can contribute so much to the housing solution. We have NGO community. They also have a strong willingness, experience, expertise, connection with community themselves, and the home partner is important. That uh, across the region, we can do that greater and more scalable impact if we come together.
Could you tell us a little bit more on the NGO partnership that you have, and how does it actually result in larger, collective work? And also your experience in working across the region. What has been your experience?
For Cambodia, we are co-chair of the NGO network on housing together with government and UN Habitat. And the work that we are working together is around come up with data gathering, evidence-based best practice, sharing knowledge, and also co-create a project together with government to implement the housing solution in the country. And we not just do it alone within the Cambodian actor, but we work with Habitat Hong Kong. For example, this year we brought the multi-ministry from the government and the private sector together go to Hong Kong. So the experience of government in Hong Kong and Habitat Hong Kong working together with other actors in the ecosystem to address housing solution is amazing. That's something that the multi-ministry and the private sector, including us, Habitat in Cambodia, have learned so much about diverse solution for promote inclusive housing. That's including public housing, temporary housing solution toward a long-term housing ownership. Those are amazing for us to adapt into our country context. So we see the power of partnership and also partnership beyond the country, but together with our habitat network in the region.
Yeah, and it's amazing how your collective effort can go beyond boundaries, right? I mean, like Handoko earlier mentioned, it can be that you know it, but you simply see it so clearly when somebody has sat down with you and actually talked about it. What do you think, Handoko?
We learn from Nepal and also from Cambodia and other places how really to see the gap within the ecosystem, housing ecosystem, and how really the policy can address it, specifically surgically. Multi layers from the global, regional, and national office collaboration and support. We are able to do a kind of a survey and research for the national housing poverty and how the ecosystem works within the and also TCIS is the one that really provide us the understanding, also the landscape about housing financing, what is the gap, and how we can fit in into that. You see, so one example is that is the one that in the Kabupaten Tangerang. So at that time we see that the keywords is that the families cannot access to the government subsidies. So there is a village a budget for that, but the local government also has is not really have the solid footing based on regulation how to access them. So here is a habitat is coming in into the picture. How really that to have a policy umbrella for the local government really to access to the housing funding at the village level. So through that process, collaborations with other partners also, to that only one policy that if 11th village is being covered, benefited by the policies, the first year is 127 families, houses, renovated and built. And then the second year is 3,188 houses, families. So total 3,300 families being served, benefited to the one policy. And then the first year is 229,000 something dollars is channeled to that process, to the policy. But the second year, 6 billion something. So it's become around 6.7 million something. So the multipliable about one policy is very key. How we can see and then how we fill in the gap to that policy. And that policy now we bring means we invite that local leader, the government leader, go to another local government leader. And then we establish and we facilitate how the policy being established at the new places. So now we are looking also for which are the policies that we can work at the regional level as Asia Pacific, learning from each other, and what is really within the context of Indonesia, and how to fit in into the system, and then how really that it's really that giving an access for the voiceless. I think that's very key, so that they can also access to the government budget which is available to the policy establishment.
That's so important, Handoko, because you remind me that the work that we do locally has far-reaching consequences and impact
Beyond there,
beyond
okay.
where we work. When I was working in Nepal, when we are working in some kind of a policy or with local leadership, always very important that you can show examples. And I think Habitat has such an added value in that because we have technology, implementing arm like TCIS, like you say,
Yes.
who bring innovation to the picture. We have other technology partner. We have academic institution who work together with us to look at the research of housing can be much more versatile, as you say. When we really look at us as a region, everything we do, the problems are similar, the communities are almost similar, the socioeconomic status almost similar. So what we do in one country as a region, there's so much scope when we try to scale up solutions, innovations, when we try to replicate what works best. It has to brought into the central stage when we talk about climate change. So all of these work in the region that we do in terms of policy and partnership and commitment from our stakeholders, so critical when we do it together and so necessary that we grow through power of learning, power of collaboration, partnerships, and many more. So Handoko and Vandy, our conversation tells us policy wins can take really long time. You mentioned it's not a overnight work. And you have also mentioned you need to, show some evidences on how it works. Then you need to sit and have a long dialogue and discussions and plan. And even though you want to really rush, it can take time. So, how would you like to encourage, our supporters and development partners, international partners worldwide, to keep investing in policy work? How do you see that?
It is important that we join the journey together. This is about partnership, how we identify the need, how we agree on the priority solution together. For the case of Cambodia, the research is a joint research to identify the housing need, and also there is a joint recommendation from community and home partner about what would be a solution. And we're doing this together with NGO, with development partner, key donor, bilateral, governmental donor. So this is becoming a systematic housing solution, how we as a country to go about to promote inclusive housing solution for the low income and the family that living in the informal settlement to become more sustainable, impacting to the next generation. And that important for a Cambodian society, Cambodian economic, because the whole society will become stronger and more sustainable, more resilient together. So that is the lesson learned we learn from Habitat Cambodia. Yeah.
There's a quote in Africa.
Mm.
It takes a village to raise a child,
Yeah.
and it takes a village
Yeah.
to elevate housing poverty, and beyond a village, the way I see it. So I think everybody has to take part because the most important part, the way I see it, that the common purpose has to be crystal clear first. But how to the policies it become a larger impact, sustainable impact, so that the corporates as the investors they see a longer term sustainable impact and return on investment beyond the seed fund investment they are providing. But the government will see that at the grassroots level, there's a tangible, the complete house, decent house, safe house, hazard and climate resilient houses that's being built. Because I always believe the poor doesn't deserve the less quality housing. They deserve affordable, but also is a quality housing. And that is the one that I think should be inspire all of us that we can work together for that. And within the ecosystem, housing ecosystem and other things, but at the end it's about it take a village. Together we do it together.
That is so true and powerful, Handoko, because, our experience in working on the National Bamboo Guideline, for instance, as a policy document, took many, many years. Like, as you say, it takes a village. Policy for us is not the end of the work. For Habitat, policy is a strong bridge to connect to the further work we do, always. And it's the start of our work to implement and operationalize so many things that policy speaks at volumes, right? It's an enabler. It helps us to do better. It helps us to create more linkages to government's own priorities, for example. And if you also see in Nepal, for instance, it's because of the commitment of the local and provincial government that we're actually able to do something on housing. And, with their priorities for organizations like Habitat and many other our partners who work in shelter, so fundamental that, policy wins continue to be at the front. For everybody, fundamental to invest on policy, to look policy as a tool to go further and faster and to have larger sustainable scale impact. So let's look forward, right? What's actually working and moving the needle? Because we said one organization can't just move the needle all the time. What gives you both energy when you wake up tomorrow? And what would it take to push this further? Sandy.
I'm very optimistic about the future, how we're moving forward together as a region, and to take forward as a country. In Cambodia, we had this exciting policy we need to implement to deliver impact. because the exciting policy is coming from the best practice we had been implementing, and we test, we do a lot of research to modify. This is the best practice. This is something we confident to scalable together. Habitat in Cambodia also will continue to contribute to national financial inclusion strategy, which is from 26 to 2030, to support government to achieve the sustainable development goal as a country, together with the development partner and the whole ecosystem actor, to move forward with our central bank to really ensure that housing is in there, and helping to resolve the inclusive housing finance, sustainable housing solution. And also our office is also continue to contribute with the government to draft the housing law. This is the first ever housing law. We learn so much from the implementation. We learn so much from what happening, the contact change. So it's important to have a law that holistically addressing on housing, that more inclusive. And we have been discussing around resourcing. So it's important that we need adequate resource to implement what we believe should be delivered. So our office is also going to support our government to establish the housing fund, which is a model that partnering between government, private sector, impact investor. We will do that together with TCIS and also with our colleague in the region, to leverage the expertise, the best practice, to contribute to this exciting development together with our government and also our partnering community, home partner, to take people center approach. Because by the end, whatever we do is about the people, is about the partner, and also about the future generation.
Definitely, Dante. Handoko?
The one that wake me up every morning, energize me, that the joy uh, of families when they receive the house. We are building the house, but we are building the homes. There's family inside it, and then you see the joy, you see the hope for the future. Like what Fandi was saying, is about generations. We are very fortunate as in Indonesia. The government really focused on the 3 million housing campaign, and that is the momentum, I think, that only once maybe in a lifetime or something. But the $1 million questions, how will it really that contribute to that? And Habitat Indonesia cannot do it alone. We have to collaborate. I think it's very important that the learnings from Tanjung Kait, that now is on demand with other local government and decision maker in the next 3 years. We really focus on that, how really to support them, technical assistance, consultancy, and also contributive to the housing intervention implementation. The other one that we introduced to them is about the hazard resilient and also the climate resilient, passive cooling. There's more focus on that. So affordable housing, the quality housing is there. The second one, I think, is very key, that through the learnings with the policy making, we are now is trying to find the right partners, strategic partners, to really between the housing ecosystem, what is the housing policy gap, which is that now to support that the low income families can have more access to the government subsidies and other available funding. And we believe that the access to the land tenures, access to the government subsidies, and also access to the affordable housing, we can leverage about that, and also to make a sustainable impact to multiplications of the model across Indonesia.
Mm. I resonate with those emotions, Handoko. Every time you go for a house handover, you know you have made these changes on the ground in the life of community. You might see them as one home partner, but the amount of, happiness, and every time you're at the community, it makes me so emotional. I mean, it feels like this is my first house handover. Every house handover is so special and so emotional. And I am so definitely grateful for all the, global funding partners that we have who bring in resources, and our affiliate partners who work together with us. For them, it's us who are doing the work on the ground, but they have such a lot of trust in the work Habitat does locally and regionally, right? And so much trust placed in us that we're able to make that change. And I think one encouragement I have is every day I'm able to be part of this true global change. So, Vandy and Handoko, thank you so much for this very inspiring conversation. I think it's just a start, a very beautiful communication we will have about the work we do. But before we leave, something interesting and enlightening. So, what's the first word that comes to your mind when you hear the word home? First word.
Home is where we share, love, and laugh. It's the foundation of life. It's where we grow up. It's a hope for the future.
Okay,
Family.
that's great. Finish the sentence for me. Through housing, we open the door to.
Resilient.
Through housing, we open the door to.
Hopes.
Okay. What's the best homemade meal that you have been offered as a guest when you have been at someone's place?
Oh, fried rice.
Fried rice.
Dosa.
Dosa. Okay. What's the very first thing you remember about the home you grew up?
A place where I play with friends.
Okay. Antoko?
Uh, the love.
The love. Okay. So, on that note, thank you so much, Vandy and Handoko, for being here with us and for this beautiful, inspirational stories and journeys and examples of policy and partnership. And we're doing a work that is impacting many, and we should continue to do that. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eliza.
In this episode, we took an honest look at the housing gap in Cambodia, Indonesia, and Nepal, and beyond. Not one entity can close the housing need on its own. Partnerships and strengthening policy instruments are necessary at local, national, and regional levels to exponentially scale the solutions and effectively address the gap. Thank you for opening the door with us today. Follow and subscribe so you never miss an episode. To learn about Habitat for Humanity's work in the region and find out how you can get involved, visit habitat.org/AP and follow Habitat for Humanity Asia Pacific on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.